How to replace a boring Session 0 with something better. Today on Dungeon Craft. Welcome to Dungeon Craft. I'm Professor Dungeonmaster, and this channel is about playing the ultimate game of D&D and other tabletop role-playing games.
And I'm Deathbringer. Level up your game by subscribing and hit the bell icon to be informed as soon as we upload new content.
Session 0 is pretty much standard operating procedure in D&D games today. It's a time to create characters, discuss expectations, boundaries, and who's bringing the beer. And if you're invited to my game, the answer is you. There are a lot of great videos on this subject. Dungeon Dudes has a very good one. Bob World Builder has a great one, a simple checklist that you can follow for Session 0. And if you're new to playing D&D, I recommend those videos. This video is about what I do personally. If you're playing virtually with strangers or playing with virtual strangers, I really think you should have a Session 0 in which you discuss expectations, rules, and safety protocols. But I only play with my friends, and our time is limited, so I want to use the first session to roll and create characters, but also play a short scenario so the players get a chance to actually play the game. Call me crazy, but I think if you invite people over, especially new players, for Dungeons and Dragons, and they don't get Dungeons or Dragons, yeah, that's kind of lame. First comes the pitch. This is what I'm going to text you before we have Session 0. It goes like this. My campaign is called The Veiled Society. It's based on the Dave Cook BX module. It's Gangs in New York meets Game of Thrones, urban-based. Everyone plays a criminal, mostly rogues. No druids, bards, clerics, paladins. Everyone must play a human. No cat people, turtle people, elephant people. Low level, low magic, low power. We're going to use my Deathbringer rules, which are pretty much basic Moldvay D&D. 3d6 for ability scores, no re-rolls. The tone is darkly humorous. It's rated R. 4 to 5 sessions. I'd like to play bi-weekly. Are you in? And if you say no, that's perfectly fine. Bob Worldbuilder says if you can't play Barty McFly, he's out. And that's cool. No harm, no foul. My favorite character is Leonardo DiCaprio. Nothing wrong with that. They just don't fit in with the gritty vibe of this campaign. By texting ahead, you're not wasting your player's time. It also mitigates the problem of a player showing up for Session 0 and then trying to arm twist the Game Master into letting him play his half-Dragonborn, half-Aasimar, Blood Oath Paladin, and then pretty soon everyone wants to be a tiefling or an elf, and it doesn't resemble the Game Master's original vision. The Game Master is a player too, a very important player. They're spending hours working out this campaign, and if you have a vision, your player should respect that vision and play within those limits. If not, there are plenty of virtual tabletops where they can find a game they'd like to play. Key point, I said 4 to 5 sessions, and there's a reason for that. First, it's not much of a time commitment. If you're a new player, you might get scared off with the prospect of playing every single Friday night for the next year. When you invite someone to do that, that's kind of like inviting them on a first date and then asking them to get married to you. It's also a great way to persuade experienced players to try out a new system. I frequently get asked, how do I get my 5e players to try Old School Essentials or Deathbringer? And the way is you invite them to a limited edition campaign. You say, look, we're going to play this campaign for just the summer, 4 to 5 sessions, that's it. And you got to kick ass and make sure that they have such a fun time that at the end of it, they ask you to keep running that campaign and forget all about their old one. This is a psychological technique called the foot in the door technique. It's why you tune into Dungeon Craft, and this is the best way to convince experienced players to try something new. It's also a great way for you as the Game Master to save time. I mean, what if your game sucks and nobody wants to play it? Or you don't enjoy playing with them and then you're locked in for a 6-month period? Many Game Masters start with a vision of their campaign having this epic conclusion, but let's face it, most campaigns just kind of peter out and die of attrition. By saying it's only 4 to 5 sessions, that encourages you as the Game Master to really plan the next session. On this channel, I'm always saying, don't plan too many sessions ahead. I've run a campaign for 30 years. I'm only 1 or 2 sessions ahead. That's it. As a Game Master, the most important session you're ever going to run is the very next one. You don't plan out a campaign saying, well, you know, this session isn't that good, but wait till we get to Session 7. Like, you got to make sure your best session is the next one. A big Session 0 mistake is to think this is an opportunity for you as the Game Master to give your players a 30-minute history of the last 1,000 years of your amazing campaign world. No one gives a crap. Save that stuff for the game. Have them experience the world and reveal that world as they play it. Show, don't tell. Scheduling. This will differ from group to group, but there are 2 questions I always get asked. What do we do about late players, and what do we do about players who are absent? Does that mean their character is absent? Are they taken over as an NPC by the DM? Does another player roll for them until the player shows up? I don't know. I ask them. I say, what should we do if you're absent from a session? What do we do when you're late? Do you expect us to wait for you, or are we just going to proceed without you? Is this going to make them arrive on time? No, but they're going to be a lot more conscious about it. Who's bringing the food? You don't have to waste game time doing that. Just send out a group text beforehand so everybody doesn't bring pretzels and sun chips. And because a lot of game masters are afraid to tell their players this, I'm just going to do it. If you bring food, you bring food for everybody. You don't just arrive and start eating Subway. You bring Subway for the whole table. If you order, have someone besides the game master coordinate that. They got enough to worry about it. And have it delivered at a point that's convenient for the game master, like when you're taking a planned break. And if you are invited to my game, whatever you bring, don't bring a vegetable platter. It's not that I'm against healthy eating. I just want to stop living the lie. Same thing with salad on Thanksgiving. Nobody wants that. Character creation. Everyone is going to make up 2 characters, their main character and the backup character in case the first character gets killed. The backup characters gain experience points parallel to the player characters. So if the player character is 5th level, the backup character is also 5th level. And this is one of the reasons I prefer old school essentials, because it only takes 5 or 10 minutes to make up a character. If you've got 5e, you definitely have the advantage in apps on your phone that you could do that, and maybe with the second character you can get the minutia out of the way on your own time. But having a backup character to start off is a great idea. In this campaign, everyone is going to play a criminal, so there's probably going to be multiple rogues. So how do we differentiate them and make them unique? Well, I presented my 5 players with 6 archetypes. The first is the slumming noble. The second, an alchemist, my own class. They make potions that mimic the effects of spells. The burglar, a traditional wall-climbing, lock-picking rogue. The spy, the social rogue, the master of disguise type. The heavy, an intimidating thug. And the tracker, they know how to find people. And now for the Game Master question of the ages, the one that has been the subject of countless Reddit posts, message boards, and forums. How do you begin a campaign somewhere else besides a tavern? I don't know. Make your players figure it out. Ask them, how did you meet? Are you siblings, cellmates, ex-lovers, childhood friends? Marianne is a duelist, and Raven, an out-of-work actress, is her second. Klaus is a bounty hunter who was himself a criminal, and he strangled his jailer, and Gretel was his cellmate. She's able to pick locks, so she was able to free them from their irons. And they met Helga on the road. Problem solved. Then I ask a series of personal questions, beginning with, I turn to a life of crime because, followed by, I will immediately fight over, and they have to list 2 things that they will just instinctively throw down for. One fear or weakness is, I allow them to choose between gambling, substances, a mild phobia, personal tie, or a romantic relationship. I stress that I'm not going to make this a debilitating condition, like every time they walk through a tavern they have to make a saving throw or they have to have a beer. I'm just asking them for a personal weakness, a vice in which they indulge that makes their character a little different and gives them some sort of flaw. I will fight to the death for. Even criminals have a code and people they love. And I would never want my friends to know about. This one is so juicy, and my players didn't disappoint. Gretel lost a lot of money gambling, and because of this debt, her sisters are now indentured servants of a cruel noble. On the night of her wedding, Marianne fled with the dowry, and the guy she is supposed to marry is still after her. This is pure Game Master gold. I could do so much with these stories. And I give each player a little notebook in which they can write their answers down. They can also use this to keep track of NPCs and plot threads. And at the end of every session, I collect it and go through it. And one of the things I look at is, what ideas do the players think are interesting? That's where I can pull ideas and build adventures from. Which brings us to scenarios. I like to have a very simple scenario with just a couple of encounters so the players get used to playing these characters, and if you got new players, they can find out how the dice work. One idea, as the players are walking down the road, they hear some pilgrims or a merchant being ambushed by bandits, and they intervene. These bandits have reduced hit points and do reduced damage so that it's nothing lethal, just enough that new players can learn how to roll a d20, roll damage, and cast spells. I began the Veiled Society by having this newly created crew meet with a contact who sends them on a mission to recover contraband from a warehouse run by a local street gang. There are 10 to 12 gang members, so a direct assault is out of the question. They need to use stealth, cunning, guile, and role-playing to get what they want. This allows my experienced players an opportunity to try out these characters, create voices, and start working with one another. How are they going to get into the warehouse? I don't know. That's not my job. That's their job. A lot of game masters think of themselves as storytellers, but I prefer to consider myself a conflict designer. I create conflicts, but I don't need to know how the players figure their way out of the conflicts. That is where the story emerges, and that is their department. And I don't plan more than one session ahead. I use a random urban scenario generator, which is available on Patreon, and I'll reveal in the next episode in the series. You just toss a handful of dice and it'll produce an objective, location, antagonist, and time limit. There are thousands of potential combinations, and it reduces my prep time to about 10 to 15 minutes. Creating interesting characters is a critical part of the game, and Session 0 can be a big part of that. But you can combine it with a scenario and have Session 0.5, and I think that's a lot more fun. At least, that's what I think. Do you agree, disagree? You could put it in the comments below. Also below, you'll find links to Dungeon Craft on Facebook, Patreon, and my module Macbeth, available at questgivers.com. But whatever you do, don't leave. Click on the next video in the series so you get more tips on how to run urban adventures. I'll see you there. And until then, may all your rolls be 20s. Deathbringer, what did you do? I told you to invite Barty McFly for dinner.
I did. I thought you liked Cornish Game Hen. For more D&D tips, do what this nerd says and click on the next video.